Aurora 7 and Dandelion Wine, Nostalgia and Innocence and all the trappings between. Part 1, Aurora 7 and an Introduction to Nostalgia. Thomas Mallon's Aurora 7 tells the story of Gregory Noonan working through personal issues within the time frame of Scott Carpenter's Flight. Gregory Noonan, a grade school-aged child, suffers existential and, maybe due to their existential nature, ineffable dilemmas. These questions gain some sort of physicality when he climbs trees and when he builds a cardboard replica of the space rocket's interior. Quality of the replica aside, these moments of physical action represent the best way for Gregory to express his dilemmas. They also represent the best way for the father to understand the son. The best changes depending on the scale, though. Here, the best comes up short. Overall, the core story for Aurora 7 drifts from the page, as gentle as most things that drift. Scenes jump from character to character, place to place, without pitfall. On the surface, the concept of multiple narratives might sound confusing, but the novel handles it with ease and grace. It also helps that the novel keeps the narrative chronologically linear, with the use of the flight as a form of timestamps. Multiple characters with different voices tell the story in a way that mixes the limited with the omniscient. As previously stated, despite multiple characters that spend some time in the spotlight, the novel focuses on Gregory Noonan. As a child, he has childish worries and childish problems. When he takes actions, he acts childish. While his actions, such as climbing trees and sneaking to New York City, fit the mold of the literary genre, they also fit the mold of something a child would do. At least, I would like to think they fit the mold of what a child would do. Maybe his actions mirror hypothetical actions I would have taken in the same situation. As I grow older and step further from childhood, I question the nature of childhood and nostalgia. I have a big question. Does the nostalgic media we consume accurately represent the period of time for which we feel nostalgia? Or does it represent an entertaining ideal? Do we remember or do we wish? Part 2. Some words on nostalgia. Nostalgia plays a large role in the characterization of Gregory Noonan. His knowledge reaches to certain limitations and cannot go beyond accurate to children. He does not know everything and knows he does not know, but thinks he knows enough. When the narrative centers on Gregory, we get his thoughts and feelings at the moment. We do not get a future Gregory looking backward and reminiscing, filled with tones that he now knows better. Even underneath Mallon's prose and word crafting, Gregory comes across as an ignorant child. The narrator may know more. The reader may know more, but Gregory does not know more. The narrative delivers this ignorance in a way digestible to the reader. At some point in time, the reader's knowledge also had reached to certain limitations. Nostalgia seems popular at the moment. At the time of writing this, entertainment flashes with the glitz and neon of the 1980s. Different forms of music try to capture, without mindlessly replicating, the feel of music from the 80s. Shows and movies take place in the 80s and receive all sorts of accolades and box office gross. Of course, I think nostalgia's popularity comes in pendulum swings dictated by time and the majority perception. In the future generations of entertainment consumers will desire media nostalgic of this time. As such, I feel confident this essay will remain relevant as pages drop from the calendar and subsequent calendars hang to replace the previous. Nostalgia appeals to us for accessible reasons. One does not need a genius-level intellect to understand. Much like the Swiss soldiers feeling elated when returning to the thin air of their homes, we feel elated when we return to a metaphorical home. We prefer the simple over the complex. We prefer the known over the unknown. We prefer ease to turmoil. Of course, exceptions do exist. For every statement, someone could raise a hand and offer a contrary position. For the sake of this essay, I will dismiss those contrarians for the time. However, nostalgic media sometimes shows us a forgotten world of horrors and depravity. It reminds us that dangers also wrought the past, that the past does not shine with the polish we sometimes imagine. For every form of media that portrays childhood as a lost ideal, a depiction that shows the bullies and the senseless violence also exist. For examples, into which I will not delve too much, look to the Netflix series Stranger Things, with the playing of Dungeons and Dragons among friends paired with shady extra-legal organizations torturing children, the 2016 film adaptation of Stephen King's It, with reminders that the film happens in the glory days of the 1980s, while a supernatural clown encourages a mullet-sporting bully to gut children, and as more of a stretch, Super 8, which captures the wonder children have for filmmaking in light of family tragedy. Although examples such as these depict the past in less favorable light, they still rely on nostalgia. They use the past to play on the audience's emotions, triggering certain associations through what I call emotional shorthand. Of course, I recognize the way the past works into the narrative as a whole, but that does not dismiss their usage of nostalgia. And, as I expand on the subject, I keep my big question in the back of my mind, running as a leitmotif. Part 3. The Greentown Connection. When thinking about Aurora 7, I considered it Thomas Mallon's Ray Bradbury novel. I noticed the nostalgia in Aurora 7 during the first read. The novel makes no attempt to hide it. Such a feat may prove impossible for historic fiction, since I believe the insight into history serves as the main attractor. Even though I did not experience the Aurora 7 flight, I understand and recognize the way that moment in history, with its inherent ideals, attracts. The same concept draws crowds of chainmail-clad patrons to Renaissance fairs. Even though one may not have experienced a period of time, that period of time can still draw and intrigue that one. But the upfront nostalgia in the novel did not make me compare it to Dandelion Wine, one of my all-time favorite novels by my favorite author, Ray Bradbury. That came later. I do not remember when the connection occurred to me. Like many moments of inspiration, it just struck me. Also, like many moments of inspiration, I realized that this connection formed from a gradual algebra of several factors over time. On this night, I looked at my books, which I had stacked on my floor in no order, saw the spine for Aurora 7, and thought, maybe I like it so much more than his other novels because it reminds me of Dandelion Wine. At the moment, my conscious mind pieced together all the clues that had circulated my constant train of thought. Now aware, I decided to explore the connection deeper to see if something waited under the floorboards. On the surface, the two novels don't appear too similar. Dandelion Wine takes place in the small Illinois town of Greentown and features one summer in Douglas Spaulding's life. Douglas tackles the task of growing up. His story deals with aging and maturity. At the beginning, he occupies a space in time known and comfortable to him. At the end, he occupies a different space, marked by knowledge and change and the loss of his old self, unretrievable beyond the veil of the physical and philosophical aspect of time. The novel attempts to use the reader's own experience growing up in the phenomenon known as nostalgia to enhance the emotional resonance. The reader understands what Douglas gains. The reader remembers what Douglas lost, and maybe the reader longs for that lost thing. Aurora 7, on the other hand, takes place in the suburbs outside of New York City, and at a different part in time. It features Gregory Noonan. At an age younger than Dandelion's Douglas, Gregory does mature over the course of the novel, but not through the basic form of aging marked by birthdays and years. He experiences childhood, but not in the same bucolic manner of Douglas, where even a serial killer who strangles women receives the childish treatment of spinning legends. Gregory's experience occurs in the course of a day, with a few flashbacks for further expansion. Also, his internal struggle proves more elusive. Aging happens. We have some understanding of it. However, the problem which leads to Gregory climbing trees, a rather generic action, escapes our bank of prior knowledge. The two novels do have similarities outside of young protagonists. Both novels offer a broad view of their casts. Dandelion Wine focuses on Greentown and all of its denizens. From chapter to chapter, the narrative jumps from character to character. Aurora 7 does something similar. Although it does not adopt the same style of disguising short stories as chapters, the novel still compartmentalizes each character's personal narrative. It provides a large overview of what happens in the lives of ordinary people as something extraordinary, the importance of which people have diluted, happens. Dandelion Wine paints the portrait of a town through day-to-day lives of people. Aurora 7 makes a comparison between the global importance of an historic event and the personal importance of an individual's life. Both novels take a more maximalist and imagist approach to the prose. Both novels offer a healthy sample of beautiful writing. Of course, Bradbury's style differs from Malin's. No two writers write the same, nor should they. Still, in parts of the prose, I notice stylish overlaps. If I were to go through both novels side by side, with as discerning an eye as possible, I could list all the similarities in great detail. However, I want to focus on the theme of innocence. In Dandelion Wine, childhood presents itself with ignorance and the knowledge of adulthood working in the subtext. In Aurora 7, childhood presents itself up front, full of confusion and questions. Both novels have innocent characters and celebrate the innocence. Part 4. Innocence. One time, when one of my brothers had started reading the Game of Thrones series, he had tried to advertise it to me as realistic because people get tortured within the pages. He talked about the gruesomeness and the adherence to reality. I had countered that the latest book I had read, As She Climbed Across the Table by Jonathan Lethem, contained a girl falling in love with a sentient mini-universe. I do not think he comprehended why I brought up this example. I may have just wanted to perplex him. Sometimes I grow weary of damaged characters. Sometimes, when I read about a pill-addicted character who drowns their sorrows with nail polish in the absence of more palatable alcoholic beverages, I roll my eyes. Sometimes I grow tired of the need for subversive themes and the subsequent race to make material more and more subversive. And then, when someone tells me over and over again about some book or TV show or movie having a shocking scene, as though the presence of blood or nudity serves as depth, I sigh and shake my head and end the conversation. Now, I do not dislike these novels. In fact, I praise a number of them as great works of art. However, sometimes I think people underestimate the purpose of innocence. When I use the term innocence, I do not refer to material that avoids the negative, what some people might call wholesome. Death and violence can exist within innocence. I refer more to an approach, a way of viewing and handling a situation. I refer to an overall feeling, a theme. Underneath the veneer of nostalgia and saccharine families, Dandelion Wine deals with mortality and death. In it, older people contemplate their inevitable end. One chapter features two women in fear for their lives from a local serial killer. Upon learning that the serial killer died of natural causes, the town's children convince themselves that the real killer still roamed the ravine in a way of perpetuating the ever-present threat of gruesome murder. One normally would not consider these subjects as innocent. My innocence refers to the children of Greentown realizing the importance of local legends and the playfulness of scares while diminishing the actual threat a killer poses. The children know not to kill, and they know why one should not kill, but the appeal of legends glimmers too brightly to ignore. Although Douglas ages or matures at the end of the novel, he understands the importance of his childish mindset, and he decides to never lose that connection to his childhood. His childhood built him and connected him to his family and to all the people in the town. The darkness of the world will not snuff his metaphorical light as a representation of his optimism. He might waver and the metaphorical light might dim, but he will continue on and the light will regain its luminosity. Gregory Noonan, in Aurora 7, dreams of space, of the unknown. His ignorance, or lack of experience being wounded by the real world, drives these dreams. He wants space since it lies outside of his world, and he does not think of the threats that linger between the two. Innocence propels children toward dreams of astronauts and space flights. Meanwhile, Gregory's father, who has experienced the wounds of the real world, wants to reconnect with his son. He wants to make his son happy and to keep him safe. Gregory floats amid innocence. His father, some mental distance away, tries to re-enter that innocence. He realizes too late that he stopped dreaming. These two novels valuing the trait of innocence inspired me to connect the two. That one night, the epiphany struck. I decided that I would refer to Aurora 7 as Malin's Bradbury novel. Maybe a part of us desires that innocence. Maybe we draw toward nostalgia for this reason. Maybe we corrupt nostalgia to maybe a part of us desires that innocence. Maybe we draw toward nostalgia for this reason. Maybe we corrupt nostalgia to justify losing that innocence. Honestly, I do not know. I know that I enjoyed Aurora 7, that it made me happy, and that it reminded me of another work that also made me happy. This has been Bennett Durkin, and this has been an essay from my library.